So thanks everyone for joining us today. Today's discussion is going to be as interactive as possible. So we want to encourage audience participation throughout. I can see the chat already going off, so please keep that up. We'll be doing it in a couple of other ways as well. So you'll all be on mute when you enter the room. And we'd encourage you to keep your mics on mute, though not the panelists, of course. And we put out a call for questions when we announced this event. So we have fielded some of your questions, and those have made it into my prepared questions that I will be asking our panelists. But feel free to drop extra questions or comments into the chat, and some of my colleagues who are monitoring the chat will gather those, and we'll have some time at the end in order to get those answered. And there will also be a couple of polls that you can participate in throughout the session. So when those come up, please jump in and get involved. So with that, I would like to introduce myself and the panel. My name is Joyce Seitzinger. Says so right on the screen. I am the Director of Student Experience Innovation at RMIT Online, and previously the Director of Learning Design at RMIT Online. And I'm really, really chuffed today to be joined by some design leaders from some leading brands around Australia. Today we have Swain, who is the Executive Design Director at Symplicit. Thanks for the wave. Claire McMahon, who is the lead design tinker at Thinkerbell. And we also have Andrew Green, who is the head of design at Canva. Thanks, Andrew. And we have Benson Low, who is senior manager, research and design ops at REA Group. Although he was sharing with us earlier that that role title is likely to change, and in fact that's one of the things we're going to be talking about today, about how quickly this field is changing. So before we get started, I would like to acknowledge the people of the Woiwurrung and Boonwurrung language groups of the Eastern Kulin Nations, on whose unceded lands we conduct the business of the university. I respectfully acknowledge their ancestors and elders, past and present, and also the future. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians and their ancestors of the lands and waters across Australia where we conduct our business. So how is this going to work? Well, to kick things off, we have a lot of people who signed up for today's event who are interested in the career of the design field or pivoting to a slightly different role, moving from UX over into product. And so this first question I will throw open to all of you. And Jet, I might start with you. Can you each tell us just a little bit about your role and one of the best parts of your job?
Sure. Hello, everybody. I'd like to start by also acknowledging that I live and work on Aboriginal land, the Gadigal and the Birrabirragal people here on Sydney's beautiful coastline, as the traditional owners of the land where I live, work and play. So what was the question again?
A little bit about your role.
And my role.
And one of the best parts.
My role's all encompassing. As an executive design director, I am responsible for making sure all of our people, and we have about just under 90 designers working across Australia now, are working at their best, that they're learning and growing and connecting both across their projects and their clients, but also with the community. Gosh, the best parts of my role, I guess, are I have a ridiculously diverse background, starting as an art teacher out in the far, far west of the state at a place called Wilcannia with lots of Aboriginal kids, and have kind of merged and grown throughout my career to end up where I am through creatives in agencies, management consultant, which is where I was told where creatives go to die, and I hope that's not true, and then back out into the world of design, leading and pushing design. Having been doing this for close to 30 years, I am lucky to have become now a generalist, and I work across all kinds of design. At Symplicit, we work, in change management, we work in the built environment, obviously we work in product and service design, customer experience. So we have lots of touch points, and I hope my most meaningful contribution is in human-centered design methodology and design thinking. I'm most passionate about helping our people and our clients unlock their creative potentials and to really see design as a power horse in the boardroom, pushing design thinking, focusing on human needs, and hopefully, all of this wonderful, exciting stuff that we're about to talk to with human-centered, approach to design. We're starting to think about people and their behaviors and their personalities, their needs, their wants, their designers. And I truly believe that as designers, we're becoming more trusted. Having come from the advertising world, I was at the bottom of the trust rank along with used car salespeople. So we're becoming more trusted. We're being integrated into business strategy, which I'm just loving. And I have to say, for one, I feel really lucky at the progress design has made, and for us to be in it now at this time, where it's become multidisciplinary and we're addressing many of the world's most wicked problems.
Lovely. That's fantastic.
A big
so great
view of the world.
Yes, getting to sit at the big table is certainly an exciting place to be in design at the moment. Benson, could I ask you the same thing, a little bit about your role and one of the best parts about your job?
Thank you. That was a great intro, Jed. I'm not sure I'll be able to follow that. But yeah, Benson Low, working at REA Group. So one of the things that most excite me about my role at REA Group is just really building the design capability. We're such a large organization of Australia, but most people don't know that we have a lot of our business across the globe as well. We're in the US, we're definitely in India. There's a whole side of things, but obviously we're very focused in Australia. And I just love the company purpose, which is changing how the world experience property. So with that, design plays a huge part. We've talked about experience and changing those experiences, how people experience property. And one of my roles, and I'm always excited about this, is building capabilities around design into multiple different types of verticals within property. So you got obviously property advertising. That's a no-brainer for when you go to realestate.com.au. But people don't know that we also have financial services with mortgage choice. Amongst that, data points in terms of PropTrack. So there's so many verticals that we're covering, and we also have a commercial arm as well. So it's a really huge opportunity for us to do these type of stuff with real great design capabilities. And one of the passion that has always been within my title, enabling user research as part of design. Throughout the whole process, and working with our partners in product and tech. How do we get more in touch with our users from a really user-centered approach? Jet's really touched on a HCD approach. How do we do that across the whole life cycle? And I'll probably want to touch on the things in terms of what we also touch on in terms of operationalizing, scaling the teams. The team's grown since I started here over 3 years ago. We had about 25 designers, researchers. Now it's close to 80. But Andrew's probably going to really trump that from a scale perspective. But yeah, we're growing. We need to make sure that we have the capabilities of operations for design to actually grow with it. I think that's a discussion I would love to have.
Fantastic. Thank you, Benson. Claire, would you like to go next? A little bit about your role and one of the best parts about your job?
Sure. So hi, everyone. Claire from Thinkerbell, which is an independent advertising agency in Richmond, Melbourne. So my role there is lead design tinker. So at Thinkerbell, we do things a little bit differently in terms of our model. So we have thinkers and tinkers. So as a tinker, it's my role to interrogate, pull things apart, put them back together, I guess, and play a bit of a curious role within the design space. So I'm part of a small team. We have people in Melbourne and Sydney in our design team. But as a lead, I guess, we'll work across mentoring some of the other designers in our team, working across large and small sort of corporate brands, brands like Bega, Mental Health Australia, Jetstar. So there's some big clients in there, which is exciting because it means big opportunities to do some kind of big and exciting work. I guess on top of what's already been said in terms of things that we love about our job, and other than solving creative problems with exciting work. The other good thing that I also love about my role is also the like-minded people you get to work with. So at Thinkerbell, I guess I'm really lucky. I work with a lot of amazing but also diverse people from different backgrounds with different skill sets, and it's something really awesome about all coming together to work on creative jobs, whether it's strategic briefs as well as creative briefs. I think that's something that's really awesome, and I think that's across most jobs in this industry. You get to work with some pretty awesome people, so it's something to look forward to. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Claire. Thanks. And I so agree with you. That's one of the things that I love about RMIT Online as well, which is that, you know, we have people from lots of different backgrounds coming together in order to solve this, you know, problem of providing lifelong learning to people who are already in work. So it's the cross-disciplinary boundaries are so rich, and they're fantastic to mine. Andrew, last but not least, a little bit about your role and the best part about your role.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having us, Joyce. I guess the best part about my role is probably there's two parts to it. So I've been at Canva for about 4 years now, and on the people side, you know, building a really impactful and diverse design team. I cover product design, content design, so that's all the templates, elements, photos, videos you see in the Canva product. And we also have a huge brand and creative team as well in-house that do a lot of the campaigns and brand stuff that you might have seen out there. Building that people and building that team is an absolute joy. I love doing it, and I'm very, very lucky to be able to have done that. I guess the other side, though, is the product side, and you know, being able to envision the future of our product, shipping features that our community loves, seeing them use it out in the real world is a real buzz. It doesn't get old. As a designer, seeing people out there actually using what you've done, and seeing it kind of change people's lives is really, really cool. Whether it be a small business or using Canva to sort of up their game in branding, someone, you know, printing some t-shirts for a newbie that started on Canva, or whatever it might be. They're all really great highlights that you have in a role like this, especially as a designer, where you're sort of, you know, creating all of those features, creating all the content that people are using. And also just seeing our brand campaigns lately come out as well. It's a bit of a new thing for us, having that kind of brand capability in the design team too. So that's been the best part so far.
Oh, fantastic. Yes, you get to work with so many different people as a designer. It's just, you know, it's its own joy. If you're a people person, it's its own joy. Andrew, if I can stick with you in terms of the next question that we gathered pre this event, can you tell us a little bit about where you go for design inspiration?
Yeah, I think for me, so my background is in product design. So I think I've always been interested in what is launching. So I kind of find two parts of inspiration for me. Like, I'm always on product hunt, like I think a lot of people, seeing what the new products that are being launched out there. And I actually really love just pulling them apart and trying to think about how a designer thought through this product, the problem that they're solving. And there isn't one, you know, product that really comes to mind there, but it's just that process, I think, is very inspirational when you're going through the mindset of another designer. I think that's really, really healthy if you're thinking about, you know, growing your design career, is sort of, you know, tearing down someone else's design, if you like. But I guess lately, for some reason, as I've gotten older, I think built spaces have become more inspiring to me. You've got that sort of combination of vision, you know, putting a building together or a physical product, and then the detail that's needed as well to actually deliver it. I love that combination. We recently were lucky enough to have a conversation with Mark Newson, who's an amazing Australian industrial designer at Canva, and it was just really inspiring to hear him talk about how he thinks about problems at such different scales. You know, he designed the whole interior of an A380 for Qantas, but also the cutlery that was in there as well. And he put just as much sort of thought into both of those things. And that really sort of opened up our minds and really inspired us as well.
Yeah, that's lovely. Wow, imagine getting to design an entire A380. Anybody else want to share some tips on where to go for design inspiration?
I have some things. I'm a, you know, as I said, a generalist. And so I find myself, I go back in time a little bit. and dig into the foundations. The people that I still today look to for inspiration, it's David Kelly, Tim Brown, Roger Martin, architects Zaha Hadid, Frank Gehry, people that really think about not just what they're building, but how it will impact the lives of the people who integrate with it. So, going back in time, design thinking began with Roger Martin. He was the dean at Rutgers Business School at the University of Toronto. I was lucky enough to work with him in the, mid-2000s. I'm really old. And he called design thinking integrative thinking, which was basically the ability, I guess, to exploit opposing ideas, opposing constraints to create new solutions. He used to always say that the power of having a magician and a mathematician in the room would give a far more new solution rather than something that we've had before. So in the case of design, that means for us, it's about balancing, you've all heard this, but desirability, so what humans need, with the technical feasibility and then the economic viability, I guess, of everything that we design. So it's about using your head, your hands, the tools of the trade, but also our heart. Research and empathy are the most important tools that we as designers can have. So I kind of, I find myself going back into history. I love the priesthood of, the folks that were in black with their funky glasses that were working on small things. But I also, I'm a bit of a slow learner, and I realize that those type of things were only giving us incremental change, and that by using design thinking, we could make bigger change. So going back and watching, David Kelly's early 2000 TED Talk, anything that Tim Brown's doing, Roger Martin's books are extraordinary on how we bring design into the corporate world, into the business world. Those types of things, I think, really kind of help us understand it. I'm not throwing stones. I'm a fully paid member of the priesthood. You can see me here with my wearing black and my glasses on.
And the calendar.
And my calendar. But I really do believe design, it's getting big again, and that's happening through this application of design thinking to all new kinds of problems, global warming, education, healthcare, clean water, whatever it is. We as designers really have the power to tackle those big problems. And I think that's really exciting. So keep going back, look what's been done before, and encourage us to take a divergent approach, to explore new alternatives, new solutions, find ideas that haven't existed before, be them in product, service, business strategy, health, water, education, whatever. That's where I take my inspiration from, watching how we can have those wonderful, big impacts. And it all starts with asking the right kinds of questions. And as designers and design thinkers, we all know they start with why. How might we? What needs to be true for that to happen? Those types of wonderful questions.
Absolutely. I love what you said as well about, that putting the human-centered design kind of like front and center. And maybe if I could come to you, Claire, to maybe kick off the discussion around this. And I know everybody else has mentioned that they're passionate about it, but how do you ensure, Claire, in your role, that the user is front and center in those design decisions? Or maybe you have a different philosophy at Thinkerbell.
I think as a starting point, to ensure that they're at the front and center is understanding them as a starting point. Like, you really need to understand the user or the consumer as a starting point before, so that you can ensure that you are making sure that they remain at the forefront. So I guess for us, it's all about, understanding who we're talking to, who's using this or whatever it may be. And then throughout the process, it's coming back to that at all stages, just to reassure and reinforce that, you're keeping it relevant, you're ensuring that they're going to have the best experience possible. And you're not veering away from that. So I think for us, it's, a starting point is just understanding first and foremost who we're talking to as much as we can, because by knowing who you're talking to, what they need and what they're looking for, you can always refer back to that throughout the design process. I guess what else could we add to that? I think that's sort of how I kind of focus on it from my perspective. Yeah.
I would love to hear from the others in the room, Andrew or Benson, about how do you ensure in your environment that human-centered design stays upfront?
I'll make a start with that one. I think probably connects to inspiration that Jed and Andrew touched on. We actually get a lot of, me personally get a lot of kind of inspiration when I kind of stay in the problem space a bit longer. I think the problem space is really listening and understanding the problem, both internally and externally. So within the company, like, what is our opportunity? What are we striving and strategically going for? But then really outside of, of the, the walls or the rooms that we're in, what is the problem out there, like rental of housing affordability, right? Accessibility to housing.
A lot of problems in the news
right,
at the moment.
Right. So those are really wicked problems. And I think that's inspiring. And I think that's where you start, because that's where design's challenged, right? How can we help? Right? What's our role here? Right. So I think that's where I love to be in, because that's why I'm a designer. That's why we have a design team, and that's why we're here.
Yeah, and if there's anyone in the room who would like a primer on that problem space versus solution space, I love Indy Young's work on that. I think she explains it so clearly. So yeah, that's absolutely
huge Indy Young fan. Yep.
Yes, me too. Yep. Andrew, anything you wanted to add to how you keep that user at the front and center at Canva?
Yeah. I think it's really important from as a design leader to be really clear about your expectations with the design team, that you expect them to go out and talk to real users, and that it's actually not a negotiable. It's not a nice to have. It's actually a key part of the process. Making it kind of part of, as we've grown from being, when we were smaller, we did absolutely everything was tested. We researched a lot. Not many people know, but Canva was actually, in gestation for about 18 months with our founders before we went, actually live and hit the live button, because for a lot of that time we were doing user testing before we went live, and we really wanted to make sure that what we were going to launch was actually going to be useful for people. And that's kind of kept going through as we've grown. We've had to put more process around it. So you pretty much can't get anything through the door at Canva if it hasn't been tested with users. We want to see the videos, we want to see the comments and the real, and also the data, if there's data as well that needs to be sort of added to that. And I just think that it's almost, it's so pervasive in the culture that we don't even really talk about it that much, in that it's just expected. You won't really say, you have to be user-centered, because it's just expected, you have to be. And I know that I'm very lucky to have that culture. And I've been in places in the past where you've had to sort of instill that culture, and it can be really difficult. But yeah, I think that it's really important as well for leaders to be really clear on what their expectations are for any designers in their teams.
And in a consultancy perspective, it's also really important that we advocate for our designers, and we help sell that into the clients, because often clients just want to get to the thing quickly. And that's this whole thing about moving from design to design thinking. If you're a design thinker and you're applying HCD methodologies, you can't not research and do user testing. That's all part of the discovery mode, and then the iteration mode, the testing, constantly iterating. So when you get clients who are like, oh, we already know what they think, or we've already done some market research, you really have to help, particularly, your junior, mid, senior weight designers, explain and advocate for that to the clients, because we all know that prototyping, iterating, testing will get us to market with the right thing more quickly than spending billions of dollars and fucking it up. Sorry, I just swore. My team would know that that's normal. I apologize for everybody. But yeah, it's about moving from design to design thinking will really help solve for that.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Design thinking is if you do it and you follow all the steps, and you follow like not just the letter of the law there, but like the principles that underlie it, you couldn't not be talking to your users. In terms of the types of roles that we all have, and this is heading into our first poll, Jet, if I can ask you, what do you think the future of design jobs will look like? And a question from the audience, do you think we'll be looking at job titles like design strategist, 3D designer, chief drone experience designer, etc.? Or do you think that maybe actually we need to pare it down and design is design is design?
Did you ask me?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm already a design strategist, so that job's been around for a while. My early roles in agency land were strat planners and creative strategists, and that's just evolved to, design being more a broader approach. So design strategists, absolutely. I've worked in architecture firms, employed design strategists. They're a really important part of what we do. We're in the midst of massive change, and we can blame COVID, but the fact is it's happening anyway. We saw the rise of Uber and Airbnb, and they're all responses, societal responses to saying enough shit already. We've got enough. Let's solve some of these big kind of yummy wicked problems. And so that's changing or forcing us to question fundamental aspects of what we do and I guess why we do it. So existing solutions, existing jobs, they're all going to change and become obsolete as we try and move to solving bigger problems. So, to Benson's point, it's not just a real estate app. It's how do we help people find affordable housing? How do we solve that problem? So this whole re-emergence, I like to think of it as design thinking because it's not new. It's just the new cool, is that, there are just some basic things that we can follow and they will form our job descriptions. Like I said, we take, young grads from RMIT that have come out with a UX degree and we put them on a project designing 6 new train stations for Western Sydney. And they're kind of like, what do I know about that? It's like, about the user, how to do testing, how to do research, how to empathize. They're the skills you need to bring to the table to be able to design concourse and platforms for users, for passenger experience. So it's about being flexible, I think, with what we know and where we apply it. Simply, the future of design looks like focusing on the needs of the human, using prototypes so that we can learn by making and do so quickly. I love the idea of getting the process out of the hands of designers and putting them back to users, being participatory, using community to help us tackle some of these bigger questions. Don't assume you know what a user needs from your app, actually ask them. So participatory design, I think, is kind of, one of the next big things. So people, and all my designers, there is a beautiful mix of introvert and extrovert, and that's okay too. You don't have to put yourself out there to be able to empathize and talk to people. So I'm all for design strategists. We are all strategists. Strategy is solving problems. Yeah. Working out, identifying the problem, putting forward solutions. And I think we should be able to do that from the boardroom to the dining room.
I'm just going to add to it, maybe a tangential answer to that topic. I feel like there's this kind of design industry generalist versus specialist always happening, and I kind of actually quite like that. We've got product designers is a big part now with a lot of industries, but we got user researchers, design researchers in that kind of specializing for that further left in the problem space focus part of things. But we've also got service designers. We've also got to our point, design strategists, right? They are much more mature, broad-ranging roles that are more specialized than just a designer, right? And there is definitely people that are passionate about design systems, and we have design system teams. Andrew's got a great design system team, as we do. So that's something that we invest in, making sure that people that love UI in systems, flourish as they do, right? So that's something I want to touch on, because there is so much diversity now in the design industry than just being a UX designer or a web designer back in the day, right?
Yeah, and you need both, don't you? Because your generalist is only as good as those specialists underneath them.
Correct. There's only T-shaped, right? It's not W-shaped.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And, you look at, we have specialists that go even down to accessibility, people who specialize in accessibility design.
Yes. Yes.
And so I think, I know a little bit about everything. People say I know enough to be dangerous, and they're probably right. But I am only as good as those specialists that are joining us at the table, depending on what the problem is to solve.
Yeah, I would love to hear from Andrew too, because I think as design leaders, our job is to make sure these specialist skills are supported, but as much as enabling the generalists to do some of it themselves.
I think you need to think about what you want to optimize for. So, and what I mean by that is the type of designers that we hire at Canva for product are fairly competent end to end, and from the research, visioning, they can sweat the details on a usability test through to working with engineers and then testing and then even optimizing and experimenting. That's not for everyone. That's not what the industry says is a good designer. There are other parts of the industry that say that you need to be more specialized in UX and research and have a visual designer over there, and they are, those teams exist and they're really successful too. I think that it's more about what type of team you need, and for us, it's a big part of the culture and the product, philosophy at Canva is to have everything integrated as possible. And our thinking is the best way to do that is to have designers that think in the same way. So they think from top to bottom. And that means that we tend to hire, I would say, more generalists, because if you are covering that whole, area, you probably, are more thought of as more of a generalist, but we do surround them with specialists that go deep. So we have design researchers. I mentioned the graphic designers that we have in the group as well. We have content designers now as well that write all the copy that you see in the product, as well as creative technologists who do a lot of the prototyping that's required to kind of really get the thing right in the interaction design. But that's just what we need in our company. And I think that every org should be sort of optimizing their teams and the skills that's required in terms of design, depending on what business they're in. So I think it does depend.
Wonderful, thank you. Now I am aware that we are very rapidly heading towards the end of what I'm just loving as a conversation. I'd love to talk to you all for the entire afternoon. So I'm just going to ask a few more of our predetermined questions, and then there's been some great engagement in the chat as well. So we have some questions specifically from people for all of you. So might I ask, and maybe I will throw this one open, what do you predict the impact of emerging technologies such as mixed reality, AI, and the metaverse will have on our field?
I can go. I think kind of continuing on that conversation around job titles, I think it'll result in new specialized roles in the design industry that sort of around that space, which I think is really exciting. I think for myself and say our team more specifically, it means expanding on skills that we don't have as yet. And so kind of exploring this new space, upskilling, learning, how to work with these specialists that we were just talking about. So that's another consideration, is bringing in some more people or experts in those fields and getting to work together with them and learn more about what they do and how we can work together to kind of create better, better creative and better experiences for our clients. So for me, I think that's something that's really exciting, is just working with these specialists, some of these people that Benson, Andrew, and Jet talk about working with that we don't necessarily have at Thinkerbell. So that for me is quite exciting. And I think just the idea of being able to produce and create these really new experiences that we've never done before. Things like being able to give our consumers the ability to try products on in the virtual space, just elevating the creative and what we can do. And I think that's what gets the clients really excited. I know recently we've had a lot more demand in creative briefs that have come in to kind of explore how we can push things, AI or mixed reality and those sorts of things. So I think a lot of clients are really open to it, and moving forward, future design, I think there's going to be a lot more of it. So yeah, I'm excited to learn about it.
And it's the beauty of co-design, isn't it? I mean, co-design with your clients, co-design with the community. I comment on someone saying, not pitting designers against one another, and design should be collaborative. It should be, Thinkerbell and Symplicit sitting at a table with, real estate and Canva, and we're solving problems together. And if we can get to that place, maybe I'm a dreamer, an optimist, but that's, really beautiful. And as for future tech, as designers, we need to be where society needs us to be, and with emerging tech and helping technologists design emerging tech, from a human-centered perspective. I mean, look at the metaverse. It's already affecting workplace and how we manage and run our workplaces. And people joke about, who brought, hybrid work models to work. Was it, your CTO, or was it COVID? And it was COVID. COVID forced us all to really quickly, I'm going to use the horrible word pivot. And now things like the metaverse are starting to play. And, at Symplicit, we've got people, no longer do we have those, city studios. We've got people living up and down the coastline and out in regional and remote areas, and they are just as effective, if not more effective. Our commitment needs to be to bring them together beyond technology, because we're human-centered designers, so human connection. But yeah, I think our job is to be on top of it, to respond, to learn, to push emerging technology, to work with the very best of the creative technologists out there to be designing these futures.
Yes, and I'm super excited about that as well, because it is absolutely, these new emerging technologies are going to create so many affordances, no matter in which space you're working or currently, what industry you're currently working in. Now, we have a second poll, which we will just put out to everyone, but it's around this need for strategic design. And so our team are just going to put that up, and love for everyone to respond to that. But to continue the conversation and answer one of the questions that one of the audience members had, Andrew, you mentioned that your team has a strong feedback loop in order to make sure that what you're designing is the right thing, to know how users are feeling. So how did your team, the question is, how did your team go about setting that feedback loop up and making it effective and easy for everyone?
Yeah, we've built some internal tools that we've got a few things. So we've got internal tools that will help us understand the data, which is just the engagement across the product. So understanding, the health of the product, if you like. We've also got internal tools that help us, surface up user feedback that's coming through our support team, our customer happiness team. And they'll be, top 10 issues of the week and those kinds of things. And they're very visible. Anyone can use those tools at Canva. And it's really good to actually have that ability so that, these things aren't sort of kept in a one department. Instead, they're sort of circulated. And not just the design team. We have a lot of engineers that love to get their hands on that info as well and get cracking. If there's performance issues or crashes on, some parts of an app, then they can just get going. We do, like, I would say, hundreds of user tests every month, probably more. And we don't just even again allow, just say the designers do that. We have engineers, product managers doing that all the time, product marketing managers as well. All of that feedback comes into one repository. Again, another internal tool that we have that is a place where we store all of our insights, all of the user interviews and everything in one spot. You can search that if you have, if you're looking to investigate something as a designer at Canva, there's usually some prior art and some feedback you can use. I will do a plug as well for Dovetail. We use Dovetail as well, which is a great tool, a sister company to Canva, to sort of go through a lot of our qualitative user sessions that we do as well. They're kind of like the main ways. Oh, sorry, I should probably say Twitter. I actually think Twitter's underrated. Often I'll look up Canva hate and look through all of the problems that people are having, give some support. It's also really important to sort of check out Twitter as well.
Is that a Friday afternoon with a beer, Andrew?
I actually 4:30 every Friday we have a bit of a Twitter session. We also you know the product team very well, Benson. We also do have a way for us to regenerate some sessions for our beta testers as well, where we can kind of see how people are actually using, and we recreate sessions, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah,
I think digital and product are really good at, and hats off, they're really good at feedback loops, at measuring and metrics. And I think as designers, we all have to get better at that, because that is where budgets come with proof. And we do need to get better at experience measurement beyond customer satisfaction scores that really start to help us value design. Help us value design. And I think there's a lot we can learn from the world of product design in regards to feedback loops and measuring across the broader design suite.
Fantastic. Anyone else want to add to that? I'd love to talk to you more about those experience metrics beyond satisfaction.
There's a ton, right? So similar to Andrew, our REA does the same thing. We have a similar framework. We use Dovetail ourselves. Those are the things that we're consolidating and doing. And we have similar things like Heart Framework, which we've got an in-house version of Heart Framework as well. So it's not just designers, it's product and tech. We're all in it together. Yeah, I think that's the main thing. The metrics are shared, the wins are shared, and challenges are shared.
Okay, well, we're at 1:11, so I think we've only got time for one more question. I think this one is a bit more in your space, Benson and Andrew, but the question from the audience is, how do you deal with the battle of needs, i.e. if you're developing something like a marketplace where you have two users, consumers and customers, to put in the center who may have opposing needs?
Yeah, I'll answer that. As we know, real estate agents are representing, sellers of the property, and you've got buyers scrambling, trying to bid or put in their best price for it. So there's obviously competing needs between the three parties, right? There's not just the two party, right?
Yeah.
Our job is to make sure that the information is there. Our job is to make sure everyone has the best information to work with. But it's never going to be perfect in every single situation that we can do, have a best experience for everyone involved, right? Our job is to make sure that we provide the right best tools, best experiences we can going to that point, right? Someone's going to lose in an auction, unfortunately. I've been to many auctions myself, and unfortunately, you might not win one of those. Like, I've been at auctions I've lost many times, unfortunately. That's part of the marketplace that we all work within. And our products and services at REA can only do with what the marketplace is. I think that's the challenge that we have to face into. Like, there's no way, for example, to challenge housing affordability when the demand's so high, right? So supply and demand, it's almost like, dynamics of the market that you can't really change regardless how big your organization is.
Andrew, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think designing a marketplace is probably one of the hardest things you can do if you're a product designer. It's very difficult to get started, and then once it's started, it's an ongoing battle to keep it efficient. We have a content marketplace, so it's a little bit more straightforward than Benson's situation, I think. And so it's more about figuring out what our creators can do, and then what our users need, and making sure that that's a really tight feedback loop. It's very similar to what I've been talking about before, but except sort of going out to our content creators and making sure that they're building templates and elements that people will actually use. And you have to continually feed it, though. It's not a sort of job is done, one and done. It's like a flywheel that keeps going and going, and you need to kind of keep pushing it and feeding it. I think in terms of design, though, the designers that we have working on our marketplace think of both. We've purposefully structured them so that they actually have to consider both types. If you're pulling a feature together, or if you're designing a feature for a creator, we have to see what that's going to benefit for the consumer at the same time. We don't want to sort of see it sort of one versus the other. And that's what I sort of meant when I said designers pitted against each other, because at the end of the day, that efficiency in the marketplace that you're designing is the actual magic sauce, the reason that someone's going to come back again and again and find the next thing that will be useful for them. So I have worked at other organizations where there has been like a real division between the two sides of the marketplace, and it actually can create a bit of friction and not healthy friction sometimes. So yeah, I mean, I guess in our sense, we're a smaller marketplace, so it's easier for us to have that as one group. But and also you need a certain mindset designer like that. You need to be a designer that can almost be an economist at the same time, because you're thinking very deeply and empathetically about the efficiencies on both sides. So they can be really hard to find, those types of designers.
I think one of the things that we can take away is what our team does really well is connecting to other designers that you're working with, right? And having a positive intent, right, of your product or your service you're designing for is the only choice that we have, right? So making sure that we connect with each other, that we're designing for positive intent, with going with our eyes wide open, somehow things can be exploded. I think that's the main thing that we have to design around.
Yeah, fantastic. Jet, Claire, anything you would like to add to that? I'm just realizing we've come up to time.
No, I don't think I can add any more value than the.
I love the positive intent to finish on in terms of thinking about the future of design. It's a wonderful way to wrap up this session. Can I just thank all of you, Andrew, Benson, Jet, and Claire, for your time and your wisdom. We have recorded the session today and it will be sent out to attendees. If you'd like to share it with anyone who wasn't able to make it, please feel free to do so. I found it really interesting, and I'm sure I'll be forwarding it to my designers. To stay in touch with us about any of our other upcoming events, make sure that you follow all of our socials, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Insta, we're kind of everywhere. And if anyone is interested in learning more about any of our design courses, then please jump onto online.rmit.edu.au to check out our short courses. And we've also got degrees in this space now, which have been fantastic to design. So thank you again, everyone. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, and we look forward to talking to you again.